I want to kind of give you guys a charge today. My intent with this talk, and I think the tone for this entire conference is that we step outside of thinking in things from an intellectual perspective, and we transition our minds into thinking in a place of action. So stay with me as we talk about this important topic, and I look forward to hearing back from all of you. Statistically, the likelihood of my being stuck in a cycle of poverty and subsequent hopelessness is quite high. Single parent household with no husband present, check. Head of household unemployed, check. Minority, check. This was my exact situation in 2011, just after the birth of my second child. According to the US Census Bureau in 2011, America's most impoverished communities had all of these characteristics and one additional. I was looking at a 75% chance of staying in a cycle of poverty. Now, one could easily speculate that my having had experienced teen dating violence, sexual assault, and the fact that I became pregnant as a teen had skyrocketed my chance of remaining in the cycle of poverty from 75% to almost a certain 100%. However, this is not a story about poverty. It's a story about moving from hope to change, a story of how hope coupled with action can create positive change for everyone. Now, I want you to stop and think about that for a moment. Hope coupled with change, hope coupled with action can create positive change across the globe. And I think it's important that we note that because we're connected here in this virtual room with people from all over the world. And we need to take responsibility for our part and our duty to come together and to put things into place that will make the world better. Here's what I learned while I looked poverty and later dying in the face, especially as it relates to life's most unexpected and perhaps challenging changes. The first thing that I want to share with you is a kind of an obvious statement, and that is change happens. Things happen, sometimes seemingly too often. I remember the day just like it happened 5 minutes ago. It was Monday, August 20th, 2018. It was around 7 o'clock, and I was riding in the car with my daughter. I am a single mom to 2 girls, and so we often go on escapades together and just have fun times. On this particular occasion, my daughters and I had gone to my sister's house just so I could see her face. I don't know if any of you are like me, but sometimes I just need to put my eyes on people so that I can make sure they're okay. So on this specific day, it was right around 7 o'clock, and my phone began to ring. Now, it is not unusual that my phone was ringing at that time. For the people who know me best, they know that around 8 o'clock, I'm getting ready to go to sleep. And so they got to get their calls in before I am relaxing and preparing for bed. So my ringtone wasn't unsuspected. The call in itself wasn't unexpected, I'm sorry. But the name that I saw come across my voice, my caller ID was very much unexpected. As I looked down at my phone, I saw the name of my doctor's office. To be precise, it was my OBGYN. And I said, man, why is he calling me? He doesn't even call me during business hours. Why is he calling me at 7 o'clock on a Monday? So the backstory to that is that a few weeks prior, I'd had a biopsy because they suspected that I had some kind of unusual mass in my breast and in my lymph nodes. I was told, don't worry, it's nothing. We just want you to have this biopsy just to check. And so almost in an instant, my mind began to connect the fact that my OBGYN was calling me with the fact that I had this biopsy done. And I knew as I answered the phone, the news that it was about to be delivered to me. What I heard on the other end of the line was this: Brittany, where are you? I said, Dr. Nguyen, I'm driving. He said, who's with you? I said, my daughters. He paused. And then he said, I need you to pull over. And I said, I can't pull over. I was driving down this very trafficked area of the road. And he said, okay, you got to come in to the office. And I said, nope, tell me now. He said, Brittany, I need you to come into the office. And I said very sternly, Dr. Nguyen, tell me now. I don't know if you've ever had a moment in your life where some change is happening. Maybe you have an expectancy that the change is going to be something that is negative, or perhaps it's a positive change. Either way, you're expecting that a change is going to come into your life. And in my moment of expectation, I wanted the words, you have cancer, to just be delivered so that I could move on. So he said, Brittany, I'm very sorry to tell you, you have cancer. And we found it not only in your breast, but also in your lymph nodes. Now, I have to be honest and say, I don't even really remember what else he said after that. Obviously, he and I got off of the phone and I drove straight to my parents' house. On the ride there, I was trying to mask my shock. What else can you feel at 33 years young when all of your life is ahead of you and you've been told you've been diagnosed with advanced breast cancer? So my daughters are in the back singing and talking and having a good time. But there was this air that everything changed in an instant. And my mind began to play back the camera roll of my life. And I thought to myself, what? Why me? Why are all these things happening to me? What is it about me that causes bad things to happen? I don't understand this. I was at that time in 2018 where I was running a business and I was generating multiple six figures in business. I had a corporate job. I was doing well. By all means, I had pulled myself up from my bootstraps as a woman who had lived in the projects with my toddler, going to college in an area where they would not even deliver pizza because it was so unsafe. And so instantly I'm playing back all of these things and I'm like, I thought I was done with this. I thought we had moved this area of struggle, right? Or this constant theme of struggle out of my life. I did the work. And as I began to sit and think about why me, I initially had these feelings of anger and frustration and guilt, right? Rightfully so. So what did I do? Is there something that I did? Why do I have cancer? Why me? So fast forward when I went to go see the first oncologist for my cancer treatment and to identify my cancer treatment plan. The nurse asked me before I was brought back to see the doctor, she said, Brittany, do you have anyone else? Do you have a history of cancer in your family? Does anyone else have cancer? And I kind of looked down and I said pretty low, I said, no, I'm the first person in my family on either side to be diagnosed with cancer. She looked at her clipboard. She said, well, sometimes God says, I choose you. And she walked out of the room before I even had a chance to recover or to respond to what she said. Now, I'm a God girl, but this applies to you regardless of whether or not you consider yourself to be a believer. Change is going to happen. Your posture as you approach change is perhaps the most important advice that I can give you, or the most important word that I can give you. Because in that moment, I decided that my posture, while I was perhaps sitting at the doorstep of death, would be, okay, I got to go on this road. I might as well make it lovely. And so that is around the time that I began to position myself as the hope dealer. Because I said, if cancer is going to come into my life, it's going to be in for a heck of a fight, right? And I think that cancer is interesting in the way that it tries to wield all of this power over your life. And I was intent on taking the power back. I launched a podcast about my journey of kicking cancer in the teeth one day before I had cancer surgery. Now, perhaps some of you have not been diagnosed with cancer, but I think cancer is kind of similar to what we're facing with COVID-19. No one aspires to be diagnosed or impacted by cancer, COVID-19, unemployment, or anything else. But we all have the opportunity to fight. And when I say fight, what I mean is to continue with the charge that you have been given. So I made a decision to keep forging forward. So as I was going to chemotherapy treatments, I was working. I was bringing my laptop. I was recording podcasts. And that is perhaps the most important thing that you could remember as we look at COVID-19 and we try to understand how we can go from hope to action to enacting change. And I want to lead you into the second point here, and that is opportunity lies in every single construct of change. It's interesting because what the world is experiencing now with wearing masks and being afraid to go outside and, kind of this stay at home order, most cancer patients experience every day because we go out and we wear masks and we're immunocompromised and we have to be careful of who we are around. Now, although we can't transmit cancer to someone else, we still function in the way that most of the world is operating today. This is going to sound kind of counterintuitive, what I'm saying next, but I need you to understand that there's an opportunity for each of us wrapped up in COVID-19 that perhaps we cannot even see. COVID-19 is the great equalizer for everyone. I don't care who you are, what your socioeconomic status is. I don't care if you're Black, if you're white. It doesn't matter your creed or your religion. All of us have been impacted by COVID-19. And because of that, we all have the opportunity to create change. We all have the opportunity to look fear in the face and to decide we are going to lift off and fly. So many of us become crippled by our fears. We become crippled by the reality of what's happening and what's going on. I remember very clearly when I was in undergraduate school with my toddler, and I would often put her on the commuter bus with me to go to the library so that she and I could study together. I'm like, this is going to be our degree, right? No one else was doing that. When I made up in my mind, when I had my first daughter as a teen, and I knew instantly that I would be a single mom, when I made up in my mind that I was going to go back and complete my education, because I'd started college, when I made up in my mind I was going to go back and complete my education, everyone thought I was crazy. My parents were like, you're going 3 hours away. There's no one there. What are you going to do? This is insane. What are you doing? Everyone who I mentioned the idea of going back to school with my toddler was like, that's not going to work. But I was so intent on finding the opportunity in this changing season in my life, albeit hard. Change can either be expected or unexpected. We all know that. And sometimes we don't have the choice but to be reactionary. But in our reactions to change, we have to be very intentional. And that's why I always tell people, even when I position myself kind of as a hope dealer, is that hope is important. Hope is necessary. Hope is what we need to kind of anchor ourselves to, and it's a start. Webster Dictionary defines hope as to cherish a desire with anticipation, to want something to happen or to be true. I just want to remind you all, as we're in this COVID climate, that hope needs to be the starting place. It needs to be the catalyst for us taking action. One of the things that I have found about change, right? A lot of us we kind of have this resistance to change, and change is neutral. It is not inherently good or bad. I want you to let that sink in for a moment. Change in and of itself is not inherently good or bad. I would also like to frame it this way. A lot of times when we face setbacks in life or perceived failures, we will often look at it like, oh my gosh, I failed. What can I do? I'm at ground zero. How can I move forward? And many times the setbacks that we experience in our lives are really just seeds. They're really just disguised as setbacks, but they're seeds to plant us and to move us forward, not only into our calling, but in our responsibility to enact change and to do good in the world. I believe that we all need to take this opportunity, and it sounds a little perhaps strange to say opportunity in light of what's happening in what I like to call this COVID climate. It sounds strange, but there is an opportunity for each and every one of us to rise up for the family and friends that we've lost, for the people that we will lose, to address things like income inequality, healthcare disparities. People are losing their lives, and it is not up to anyone else other than you and I, the people here on this conference, to make up in our minds that we will do our part. I was talking with a group of women that I kind of have a mastermind with the other day, and one of them was saying, man, I'm just making baby steps. I don't feel like I'm really getting any traction on what I would like to be doing. And I said, hey, baby steps are still steps. Baby steps are steps nonetheless. And the cumulative effect of taking baby steps, right? It's just like compound interest. When we take small baby steps toward enacting change, change happens. And so my first charge to you would be, as we look at thinking about change, and before I go on to my next point, I want you all to write this down, because I think we live in a society that's very get things done oriented. We are very focused on, yeah, but what did you do? How did you do it? How did we get there? Give me the roadmap so that I can do. And while we're talking about the importance of taking action, and we absolutely have to be doing, I think we miss a step in this whole process. So I want you guys to write this down. I want you to focus on not your to-do list, but your to-be list. Who do you want to be in the midst of COVID-19? I'm not going to say after COVID-19, because we can all start today. We can all start right now. And I want you to take some time today to write 3 things that relate to who you want to be in this COVID climate and after. Because once you have defined those things, you will be able to then determine what you need to do. So please join this challenge with me of trading the to-do list for a to-be list. The last point that I want you guys to listen to and to really understand is that the secret sauce of moving from hope to change to action, doesn't lie in where you look. It lies in what you see. It does not lie in where you look. It lies in what you see. I want you guys to write that down as well, because we're all looking around us. And this situation seems insurmountable. It seems impossible. And it feels almost like most of us are suffocating. Many people I know are experiencing anxiety at the highest level, from children to adults to seniors alike. You have to determine, when you look, what do you see? Now, I imagine that pilots making oceanic crossings at night can't see anything but pitch black. I imagine that in my mind. When I think about a pilot who has to fly at night, I'm like, how do they do that, right? I'm not a trained pilot. But in my mind's eye, I would suggest that they probably see just black for extended periods of time, perhaps hours at a time. They don't board these planes with the intention of stopping. Oh, it's nighttime? Oh, I can't see anymore? I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop this plane, and I can't fly. For those of us who want to enact positive change after COVID-19, we have to be like pilots, in the sense that they often, as they're flying in the dark, they remember their end destination, and that is what they see. So even when we're looking around us and the world is suffering and we are in global crisis, let's choose to see all of us on this phone, everyone that you can touch after this conference. Let's look and see all of us doing our part to enact change. And again, what that looks like is us starting with who we want to be. And then that will translate into what we want to do. It feels like, for many of us, the bad news is never ending. It almost is like we're on a turbulent flight during this time. There is no smooth sailing with COVID-19. But even in turbulence, sometimes you're still flying. So I want to challenge each and every one of you to open your eyes and you choose. Look around you, but choose what to see. We see people on the front lines of COVID-19 doing this. They're doctors, nurses, grocery store workers, mailmen, right? Who show up to work every day with the knowledge and the understanding that this is a difficult time. And that they are, in a sense, putting their lives on the line for the rest of us. Some of us are we're in the comfort of our homes, and we don't have to go to the front lines. But I am asking you, and I'm challenging you to go to the front lines of impacting change. Just in the same manner that our doctors go forth, that our nurses, our groceries, everyone, let's go to the front lines together. I remember being a teen mother before I went back to college, and I didn't have any money, right? Which is why I was in that cycle of poverty. Now I was living with my parents. I always had a place with my family. However, I had no money. I remember a specific time where I went to my mom and I said, Mom, can I have 25 cents to get my daughter a jar of baby food? I don't have 25 cents, Mom. And my mom looked at me with this sense of compassion in her eyes. And she took me. She didn't give me 25 cents, but she took me. She loaded up a cart with things for my daughter. In that moment is when I decided that I was going to make change and that my hope would be anchored to my change. And that when those two things combined, I was going to go back to college and get an education that would help me get out of this cyclical poverty that I was in. And although everyone around me, right, and I mentioned this at the top of the speech, so many other people around me were like, girl, you're a kid, raising a kid 3 hours away from anyone you know, that's insanity. They were looking, but they did not see the opportunity that I saw, not only to be able to leave a powerful legacy for my daughters by doing that, but I was so determined to live my legacy as well. When we get to a place where we don't just want to leave a legacy and we're focused on living it, our lives will change and everyone else around us will change as well. I want to tell you a story, to me, that's a perfect illustration of this as well, outside of the story I just told you. So when my youngest daughter was 7 years old, she and I would have these deep conversations about the importance of reading. My daughter was a diehard, I hate reading person. She was the president and CEO of I don't like books. Now, for me, as someone who is a bibliophile and who finds great joy in reading books, I'm like, whose child is this? Whose kid is this? And I said to myself, I've got to allow her to see this different. So I said, hey, baby, okay, you hate reading. I get it. I get it. Some books, they're not fun. But why don't you write the book that you would like to read? With wide-eyed excitement and wonder, I could see the wheels in her mind turning as she was unshackled from her belief that she could only read books that other people wrote. So 1 month before I was diagnosed with cancer, my daughter wrote a book entitled, I Didn't Give Up, my 7-year-old daughter. And 1 month before her eighth birthday, she became a published author with that book. So every single time I felt like giving up on my cancer treatment, and after that time, I remembered that I'm the mom of the kid who wrote the book on not giving up. But I think we could all learn a lesson, the same lesson that my 7-year-old kid learned, is that if we allow the scales to be removed from our eyes and to frame things in a different way so that we can focus on not what we're looking at, but what we're seeing, we would all be set free. And what my kiddo did in that sense was challenge you, right? She challenged you, she challenged all of us not to give up, but she also challenged all of us when we are in situations that feel uncomfortable. Things are happening around us in COVID-19 that we do not like, that we don't want to experience, that we all make a decision to do something about it. And I want to tell you as I close why we choose to be change makers. Each and every one of you on this live stream is a change maker. As a nation, we are in a unique position to enact change. As I mentioned before, there is not likely one of us who has not been impacted by COVID-19. But I think about the fact that this illness, one of my mentors raised this fact to me. This illness is one that attacks your respiratory system and compromises your ability to take breath. If you are on this line, I want you to listen very closely to what I'm saying. A very dear person to me by the name of Arthur Mayweather was a cancer warrior and a hope dealer in his own right. He has now passed on. And I am told that even in his last moments, he was checking to see how other people were doing. From his hospital bed, and to his honor and his legacy, I dedicate this speech. But I want you to remember, when you think about the lives that have been lost to COVID-19, cancer, or anything else, the families whose finances have been toppled over because they no longer have a job to go to. I want you to remember that each and every time you take a breath, every single time you take a breath, you have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to continue to forge ahead, to make a positive impact on the world, to focus on who you want to be, to understand that change happens, sometimes things that we perceive to be negative too often. And that when you're looking at something, you can choose what to see. So I want you guys to remember that we are the change makers and the action takers. I want very desperately for this conference to propel you. I'm not about inspiring you. I don't care about that. I want you to take action today. And I want hope to be the fuel. And I want you to allow change to be the wings that let you take flight both today and post COVID-19. There are many things that I hope will happen after COVID-19. After COVID-19 specifically, though, I hope that we all see the world with new eyes, and we all understand that in an instant, our lives can change, and that we always keep at the forefront of our minds the power of how coming face to face with not only the brevity of life as we watch others around us pass, but we come face to face with our responsibility to keep moving, keep changing, and to take flight. I consider you all passengers on the airplane of purpose. And I hope sincerely that this talk has encouraged you and that it's inspired you. Thank you all for being here.